Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare,
Hare Hare.
So thank you all very much for coming today to help us with this very wonderful and important celebration. Before we begin, I'm sure we'll have a lot more devotees coming, so if you can all come just a little bit closer this way so there's more room behind you. It's okay. And just be conscious that devotees are coming in a little bit later, so you might have to move up again. So as we mentioned several times, this is an important time for the Atlanta Temple for several reasons. One being, 40 years ago today, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhupada was here in Atlanta, and to this painting you see of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. Srila Prabhupada performed the Arti ceremony on the same day, which is Vyasa Puja Day for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Today is that day. So we'll be doing an Arti a little bit later. So Balavanta Prabhu, who was the president when Srila Prabhupada was in Atlanta, will be here in a few minutes along with his wife, Vallavi, and he will describe the pastime of Srila Prabhupada coming to Atlanta in 1975, and I'm sure he will share some realizations that will help us as the Atlanta Temple go forward into the future. But beginning, we're also celebrating 45 years of the establishment of the temple in 1970. 1970. Srila Prabhupada. And I always point out that if you look at the old Bhaktivedanta magazines, you'll see for 1970, there were only about 30 temples, 30 or 31 temples. So Atlanta was one of those original 31 or 32 temples out of the hundreds of temples we have all over the world. And that's due to the acceptance of the challenge, the responsibility given to my dear godbrother Janmejaya prabhu. Haribol! I won't spoil his description, but the Atlanta Temple was not conceived in Atlanta, actually conceived in Buffalo or wherever they were. So we'd like to hear about all that wonderful nectar of how this temple was conceived, how it started with a very humble crew of devotees, and also this painting that's above the altar. These are the first deities of the Atlanta Temple. So we're extremely fortunate. We have our first president, we have the first deities, we have our second president. It's just incredible, the nectar that we're fortunate to have in Atlanta. So let's please welcome enthusiastically our first Atlanta Temple president, His Grace Janmejaya Prabhu. Haribol!
Father is always too kind. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinami Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pachani Divisheshi Shunyavadi Pastrachate Satani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Guru Tikadadhar Sivasana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Very glad to be able to be here today after so many years, and the temple is beautiful. And thank you, Balavanta, and other devotees here for that. It's always amazing to me that the temple has prospered so much, and is so wonderful. But I want to put just a little context to Atlanta. Of course, this is part of the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who appeared in this age to promulgate the chanting of Hare Krishna, the holy names, as the method of self-realization, where it most easily can achieve our natural state of God consciousness. And there are other methods of yoga or self-realization, but in the age of Kali, everything is so chaotic and demanding and hectic that it's very difficult to do hatha yoga or the different disciplines that are available, and they're not recommended for this age. So chanting the holy names is something that anyone can do. You can do it at home, you can do it in your car, you can do it when you have time. And it is the highest method of God realization in the age of Kali. So Lord Chaitanya wanted that the names of the Lord be heard in every town and village in the whole world. So that's the mission. That's the mission of the Krishna conscious movement, is to fulfill that desire of Lord Chaitanya. And to that end, Srila Prabhupada, spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, whose picture is here, was in the line for Lord Chaitanya. He wanted Srila Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj, to carry this message to the English-speaking peoples of the world, and in particular the West. And to that end, Prabhupada, after he took sannyas, and even before, was preaching in English in India. He lived in Vrindavan, the Radha Damodar temple there, and he would go to Delhi, he would go to the different places he would travel and preach in India. And after a while, he felt like the effectiveness was not what he had hoped or what he would like. And at some point, he realized that instead of trying to preach in English in India, that what he really needed to do was to start to translate the sacred texts, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, translate these into English. And that was his mission for a long time, was to work on this translation work. And forget the exact detail, but at some point, after a period of time, he had the Bhagavad Gita was finished. I think he had several cantos of the Bhagavatam were complete, and he became inspired to come to the New World, to America, to try to do some direct preaching. And he had his books, and some of his elder godbrothers had gone preaching. I think they went to London to try to start a mission, and they worked for a number of years, but they were preaching to the more elite people of London, the higher ups, maybe the university crowd, maybe intellectuals like this, and that was their effort, and also people that had money. And so in the end, they were not very successful, so they went back to India, and it was a disappointment. And so Prabhupada saw that, and he felt like he needed to do something different. And he was inspired, even though he was quite advanced in age. I think he was 70 years old at that point. He felt like he needed to take this message to the Western countries. In particular, he wanted to go to New York. And he was inspired to do that. Haribol, Vallavi. And so Prabhupada had very little money, after some time, he arranged to get a ticket on a steamship, one-way ticket to New York. And he had his books and he had his mission, but little else. And so he after a very difficult passage, he arrived in New York, and he struggled for quite a while to establish himself. He lived in well, he did have a contact in Pennsylvania, and he was able to go there, and he developed some illness on the passage, and so he needed to regain his strength and to get a little accustomed to the Western ways. And so that was comforting to him, and he built his strength. And after about a month, he decided he would go to the city to see what he could do. And so it was very difficult in the beginning. He had a couple contacts, but again, he had no place to live. He didn't really know anyone. It was very difficult. But gradually, over a period of time, he began to get some followers, and they were able to get a secure place on, is it 2nd Avenue? In New York City. It's called the Matchless Gifts. They have a storefront. And from the storefront, he actually began to be able to preach, and he had a little apartment in the back, and where he was able to, he cooked his meals, and he did his study and his translation work. He always continued the translation work, because that was very interested to finish, like the Bhagavatam and some of the principal works. And so this went on, and but as time went by, he would get disciples, and he wanted to open other centers, and he was very eager to do that. And so it didn't take too long. I believe some of the disciples there said, we need to have one in San Francisco. And so there was an effort to open a center there, and there were centers open in Montreal, Washington, D.C., and I forget how many there were initially, but so some of the devotees from New York, particularly Rupanuga, decided he was going to open a center in Buffalo. Okay, in Buffalo, and at the time, I'm not sure how many centers there were, but there weren't that many. But they were expanding rapidly. So anyway, Rupanuga went to Buffalo and opened a center there at the university. And I was fortunate to be there at the time. And I was a student, and I had just gotten back from San Francisco myself, and I just did a summer trip out there. In our travels in San Francisco, I ran across a kirtan party. This was a life-changing event for me. I was mesmerized by the chanting, and it was a party of about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 devotees just on the street, Mridanga and kartals, and they had the saffron robes. They were chanting, and they seemed like they were in a completely another place. They were smiling and happy, and I sat there for about an hour and just listened to the chant, and I never forgot it. I didn't know what it was or anything, but it was something very special. And so from San Francisco, I went back to Buffalo, where I was still a student, and I was very surprised to run into the devotees. They had just arrived in Buffalo, and Rupanuga had established a class in the student center, and it was like 1 day a week. And as soon as I knew they were there, I was so excited. I started going to the class. I got my beads, started chanting regular Japamala, and it wasn't long before I was completely convinced, almost completely convinced. then I was still a student, I was still, you know, had bad habits and everything. But at one point, when the center was fairly established there, Srila Prabhupada had made an arrangement to come to Buffalo. And we had what's called a mantra rock in the student center. And it was Allen Ginsberg and Rupanuga and a bunch of devotees. And they're all at like a sort of an elevated platform there. And this went on throughout the whole course of the day. So they were chanting, and if in between classes you could go there and just sit there and listen, and you know. But then Prabhupada, at some point, Prabhupada wasn't there the whole time. At some point he came and he spoke, and it was just amazing. When he came into the room, it just like changed the whole presence of the room. You know, he brought such an energy, such a spiritual energy. And after the mantra rock, they invited anyone that was interested to come back to the apartment. It was an apartment if they had questions. So I went there and heard him speak some more. It was more intimate. That was it for me. I was completely convinced, even though I didn't know a lot of what was going on. This is what I've been looking for. And Prabhupada was able to answer questions very forcefully, very truthfully. You know, it was very totally convincing. But the Buffalo Center was a great center because there was a lot of activity there with the students, and quite a few devotees were made in that center. And Rupanuga had gotten several letters from Srila Prabhupada encouraging that we need to open more centers. And so very soon a center was opened in Detroit. I think there was Vallavantas. One in Toronto was Jagadish. And these are all devotees going out from Buffalo now. So these centers were multiplying quickly, but there wasn't any center in the South. They had them in Boston, and, you know, Philadelphia, and here and there, but nothing in the South. So there was one effort. Virjan was also from Buffalo, had worked in North Carolina at the university, but they actually never established a center. It was more like a preaching effort, which was good. But anyway, it was around January. I think I was a devotee for maybe a year, because after I was initiated that next summer, the summer of '69, took formal initiation, and went back to Buffalo, and I was working as a temple commander. And it was a good service. My job was I had to go to apart from keeping the temple clean and keeping the vehicles in order, I had to go get the milk. I did the milk run. We had a farmer that would sell us milk directly, and that was one of my jobs. But Rupanuga got a letter from Srila Prabhupada that year. I believe this was the January of 1970, and he said, "Please, we need to open, you know, more centers." And this was directed. This was pretty specific. And as it turns out, there had been discussion about opening a center in Atlanta, and that was prompted partially to Balavanta, who a few months previously, Rupanuga had taken my wife and I to New Vrindavan, because I'd never seen a foreign community, and he wanted to show us, you know, foreign community. I think he was afraid I'm maybe going to go off and do something on my own. But we went to New Vrindavan, and in the wintertime, you had to walk up the road. It's about 3 miles. You had to walk through the snow to get back to the farm in the back. And when we came in there, we met with Kirtananda Maharaj and some of the devotees, and they were shaving up a new devotee, and it turned out it was Balavanta, who at the time was a student at Emory, and I'm telling your story, but Balavanta had been introduced to it by Kirtananda Maharaj in the traveling party, if I'm not mistaken, and he was invited to New Vrindavan, and so that was a fortuitous meeting that we began to discuss about Atlanta, because we had now had a contact in Atlanta, and this impetus for Prabhupada to do something to open these centers. And so when Prabhupada got that letter, or when Rupanuga got the letter from Prabhupada in January 1970, it started to take shape, at least in his mind, that we needed to do this. And in the letter, Prabhupada mentioned specifically that Prahladananda, who was one of my senior god brothers at the time, he said, why not have Prahladananda and his wife go down and open the center? So Prabhupada actually directed that. And so Rupanuga, yeah. And so Rupanuga, in talking.
Prabhupada was already talking about opening the
Yeah. So, in the discussion with Prahladananda at the time, I guess Rupanuga was talking to him. Prahladananda was recently married, and he was having some difficulty, handling married life, and so he was in a little bit of a turmoil. And so Rupanuga was looking around, and he said, Janmejaya, how would you like to go to Atlanta? I didn't remember I actually was given a choice. I think it was from Janmejaya, you're going to Atlanta. Because Rupanuga was set. He was set that we're going to open the center of Atlanta. So I think it was not very long, maybe days or a week before a plan was formulated. And we loaded in a van. We had, it was Rupanuga, it was Nityananda, who was the Sankirtan leader at the time, and myself, his mother Tara, and that was it. Nityananda.
He was married with the other wife.
I don't remember that. Well, she was in Buffalo, so it must have been later. But we headed south, and we had 2 cases of back to Godhead. Wow. We had a Mridanga, we had 2 pairs of kartals, we had some dasi paraphernalia, and that was it. We didn't have any money. But we went through, we stopped at the Washington, D.C. temple on the way down, and got prasad and spent the night. And while we were there, there was this hippie boy who was on his way to Atlanta. He wanted to open a Jesus center. And Rupanuga talked to him, and after just a little while, he decided to join us, and except he had a dog. And I don't remember. Susie? Okay. Well, that was the stipulation. He could come, but the dog couldn't come. So he had to leave the dog, and it was something he had to give up. But he came with us.
No, he brought the dog.
He brought the dog?
Oh, yes, that's all I remember. Rupanuga put the dog in the vehicle when you and Sarasvati showed up. Which I think was Dave brought the Dave.
Right.
Susie was there, and Susie was in the temple for the first couple of weeks till she ran away.
Really? Well, that's news to me.
Yeah, he forgot.
Yeah.
We used to have to stop on the way home from Sankirtan and get food for Susie.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've blocked that out of my mind. But so we're on to Atlanta with the dog and the rest of us, and the plan was to come to Valavanta's apartment, right there on Oxford Road, near Emory, right next to Emory. A little apartment in there, and that was our first camp, call it camp. And we, before Rupanuga left, I think he went down to the strip down there on 10th Street. We did the first Harinam and chanting on the street. We had turbans because of your shaved head. Up north, you don't have the sun that we have here. But anyway, we didn't want to get sunburned, so we had these turbans, and we had our saffron robes and everything. And that was the first Harinam here in Atlanta. But after that, Rupanuga headed on back, and there we were in Balavanta's apartment. And that was the very, very beginning of this temple, like that. And we were pretty strict. We got up every day early. We did our RT. We did our chanted our rounds, had a class at Prashadam, and then Balavanta had to go to class. So the rest of us, I think, did we borrow your car? I think we borrowed this Corvair. Was it Corvair? Loaded the BTGs and our gear and headed downtown. And we would do Harinam downtown Atlanta. And almost everybody took a magazine. I mean, it was just like, because we were new and they wanted to know what this was. And it was, so money came very easily to us. It was just amazing. And we did that for quite a while. And then, but we really needed to get out of Bill's apartment. We needed a place, and I think we found a place over on 9th Street. It didn't take that long. And it was a regular house in a regular neighborhood. And at the same time, we had been going down to the farmer's market and down south of Atlanta. Yeah. And we would get donations for the church, and we would distribute the food. And so we would get so much produce, vegetables, watermelons, I mean, just all kinds of donations. People were very generous. We would prepare those and bring them to the park on the weekends. And there were hundreds and hundreds of people in the park, and all kinds of people because they had rock concerts there. And we were distributing, maybe, I don't know, it could have been 500 places. I remember I wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada about it. He was very appreciative of that program. And what started happening was, because of the activity in the park, everyone wanted to know, who are these people? What is this? And so we started having a Bhagavad Gita class. I think it was Monday night. And so many people came that they were out the front door, out the porch, into the street. I remember this, it's like crowds of young people wanting to know what this was and hear more about it. And it was just, you could just feel the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, just it was just incredible. And but it wasn't long before the landlord started getting upset because of the complaints. We got a lot of complaints, just too much noise, too many people. We understood. It was. We didn't expect that either. I'm not sure what we expected, but it was really amazing. And so there was a period of time when we really didn't have a good place to live after that. I think we stayed at one girl's apartment, and she said, well, you can stay for 10 days. So we stayed 10 days, and I think we found a place over in Juniper, like hippie apartments. But we didn't last in there very long either, because of the noise. They didn't want to hear any chanting or anything like that. And what we used to do, we still get up early, we still follow our morning program, and we would walk over to the Piedmont Park, which was right next to it, and we would chant in the park for our morning sadhana. And one morning we sat under a tree, and we were in a little circle in actually, doing a morning chanting and prayers, and there was rustling up in the tree up above us. And turns out there were two, I don't know, I guess hippie type guys up in the tree, in our tree. It's like 4 in the morning, and I don't know what they thought, but I think they must have been on something. But they probably thought we were on something. They had the shock of their life, and I don't know, did they run away, or I can't remember what. It was something that was just, you had to see that to believe it.
What time of year was it at this point?
It must have been good weather.
It was September, October.
Yeah.
Fall of 1970.
Yeah. And after that, after we had to move from the hippie apartments, I remember for a while we were talking to realtors trying to find a regular place, a proper place. And the one lady said, I don't have anything right now, but you can stay in this abandoned building all around Spring Street. And he said there's no electricity there, but there's water. On the side of the building is a water faucet. You could just stay there, to get you something. And I don't know how long we stayed there, but it was difficult. but it's funny, as difficult some of these circumstances were, I don't think it didn't seem that bad to us at the time, did it? I'm speaking for myself.
We were essentially homeless.
We were homeless.
From John Mosme of 1907, when we got back from John Mosme after a whole disaster up in Vrindavan.
Mm-hmm.
From then till November 1st, and November 1st we moved into 13th Street. So
Okay.
it was about 2 months, and Janmejaya held us together. Dasi went to Boston. She left to go to pain. So it was Janmejaya and myself and Vallavi and Jaya Sena.
Mm-hmm.
Janmejaya was homeless. I mean, we were getting water and taking baths with a hose. But yeah, I mean, we were Krishna conscious. We did our morning program every morning. Went on Sankirtan every day.
We did always seem to have money though, and because we continued the Sankirtan and the book distribution, and we bought a brand new van, and so we did have some mobility there. But very quickly, we did find a house, a really nice house on 13th Street that was which was a proper place for a center, and I believe we stayed there for quite some time. And at some point along the way, Balavanta became more active, and I think my GBC man, because there was some problems with the Tallahassee Center, asked me to go down to Tallahassee to try to stabilize the situation there, and that's when Balavanta actually started taking more of an active role in the management of the Atlantic Center. And I must say, although I had a lot to do with the initiating of the center, that Balavanta probably had a lot more to do to really firmly establishing it in Atlanta with the many programs and efforts that he did.
What happened was, I have a clear memory of it. What happened was that after, remember New Vrindavan that year, and I don't want to bring up anything negative, but remember the sannyasis, and there was some issues with some of the early sannyasis, and they had some misunderstanding of philosophy, and they were preaching personalism, and they wouldn't stop doing it. And so Rupanuga and Satsarupa and Bhagavan opposed it, but we were, nobody could stop them because they claimed that they were getting it from Prabhupada. And so, Rupanuga and Satsarupa and Bhagavan all wrote to Prabhupada and said these sannyasis are teaching impersonalism in the temples. And they wouldn't stop. So Prabhupada said they couldn't be in the temples. It was a bit of a crisis for a very young movement like that. And so they went to Miami. They all went to Miami. And from Miami, Gardamoni Maharaj went to Gainesville, which is where we are now, is in Gainesville. And that whole Gainesville Center, that was the beginning of the Gainesville Center. Gardamoni going there, meeting Amarendra, and they made the center. And then Brahmananda went to Tallahassee.
Right.
So they were, and both of those centers did it extremely. We were surprised at what, and that one devotee that became a devotee in Tallahassee with you.
Rupa Vilas,
No, the other one, yeah, Rupa Vilas, but the other one,
Gami Gami,
yeah.
Shayavan.
No, the fourth one. Anyway, he's Kona Brugge. He's in the last one. I see him all the time.
Okay. We made 8 devotees from the Tallahassee.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly successful. So, Ramananda, so anyway, they were in correspondence with Prabhupada because they were some of Prabhupada's original followers and very dear to Prabhupada. He needed them. And so Prabhupada said, okay, and he gave them an order. Gargamuni went to Pakistan.
Okay. Right.
And Ramananda was ordered to Africa.
That's what I hate.
And there was this thriving center there. So the letter came from Satsarupa, who was our GBC, that Janmejaya will go. There was no question about this. There wasn't any question about it. I mean, it was just, this was the direction. Janmejaya will go to Tallahassee, and Bill Prabhu will marry Valerie Prabhu, which that's a whole other story. I was happy, I was glad of that. And Bill Prabhu will become president of Atlanta. Atlanta was already a successful center. I mean, Janmejaya was like our father, he was like our big brother. He got us through some very hard times. That was, I think, that took place, was probably in the spring, it was the spring of 1971. And we used to go down and visit you in Tallahassee. Vallavi and I hitchhiked in our Dodi and Sari from Atlanta to Tallahassee to visit the devotees in Tallahassee, and then we hitchhiked back. That was what those days were like. That was 1971.
Yes.
So, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well,
Well, I can say my memory of that was that, did we meet in Vrindavan?
we did.
We did?
Yeah, because they were shaving you off.
Yeah. Yeah, actually Kirtananda was not, actually, what happened to me was that I had been in Berkeley, California, and I met, I'm trying to remember his name. He's still a devotee there. I went out there a few years ago and visited, and he was there. His name is, huh? No, his name is, it starts with a B. Not Bahushra. This was much older. He's, a few years old. Anyway, I don't remember. I know his name. It's just not coming to me. But all the devotees in California know who he is. He's a wonderful devotee. And so I was walking down the streets of Berkeley, and he comes up to me. He's got a smile ear to ear, and he hands me a stick of incense, and he says, "Enlightenment right here in Berkeley." I took the incense, and they gave me a pamphlet that said, "Join Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement." And it had the Shikshastika, and had a picture of Prabhupada.
Now what year was that?
That was 69. And I was already chanting because I had met, of course, the George Harrison Hare Krishna record was out. And there were some people here in Atlanta who had come down from New York, and so I knew a little bit about it. I had been in the Caribbean, and this is the summer of 69. I met someone from New York, and so that person, gave me the mantra. But the first devotee I met was this devotee in Berkeley. He's sort of my Bhaktisiddhanta guru. I can't believe I don't remember his name right now. Those kinds of names. Anyway, so then, just like you, I came back after Berkeley, and then I went to San Francisco for the Chinese New Year's, and I saw the devotee kirtan party. So I joined the kirtan party. They were, I think, were a little worried about me because they didn't know who was this person who was chanting with. They didn't know what to expect. So I just chanted.
That was the summer of the big Rath Yatra.
Okay, well, this was not, but this is the following January for me. So then I came back to Atlanta, and just like you, as soon as I got back, Kirtananda showed up on my campus. So I was pretty good at promoting things. I had learned in college because I was the social chairman of my fraternity. So I had learned how to bring bands and make events and promote things. So when the devotees, and I saw them, I went up and said hello to them, and I asked them, do you need a place to stay? And they said, sure. I said, so can you stay in my, would you want to stay in my apartment? They said, yes, as long as we can prepare the food. I said, sure. And they made some prasadam that I never have forgotten. It was so incredible. Chapatis and wet subji, potato subji. Anyway, so I said, would you come back? And they said, well, if you set up an engagement for us, we'll come back. So I set up an engagement at Emory. I got to put posters up, and it was packed. Just Atlanta, really, in those days, really responded well. And so we had a packed engagement there, and we had another packed engagement at Georgia Tech. Just packed. Nice people asking nice questions. And so I think they came down twice, one for the Emory engagement, one for the Georgia Tech engagement. So then I had these friends, and so we decided we were going to go to New Vrindavan for our spring break. So we got in this little car that my friend had, and there's a whole story of that. I won't take the time, but there's a very interesting story of how Krishna put his hand into that part of our lives. But we eventually made it to New Vrindavan. It was snowing. This was like late March, early April. It was already warm here. And to get to New Vrindavan in those days, you had to walk down a 3-mile road. So we walked down the road and we got there, Kirtan had already left, and it was just a few Devaki Nandana and Satyavanda's husband, what's his name? Parmananda. And Haribol wasn't there. Anyway, it was just a handful of devotees. And nothing to eat except popcorn and this hard bread. They made milk, lots of milk, with all the stuff on top of it. Very hard for me to drink it.
Was it your idea to shape up, or did they?
Well, what happened is my friend Rob, it was Rob and Karen, right? And they were living, and they stayed in there. Their idea was to stay there. He was the coolest guy around because he had been to Afghanistan. So he had been to Afghanistan, so we felt that he was halfway to enlightenment. So he was our guru, sort of. And then, anyway, he was a real nice person, and Karen was very nice. They were married. So they were living in the chicken coop. There was an old chicken coop in New Vrindavan they had converted to a place to live. So they were given the chicken coop, and I would go. And I stayed in the Brahmachari ashram upstairs. It was an old shack, and they had an attic that they had converted. And I was hanging out in the attic, and they had all the old BTGs, which were really neat. So I would spend my time doing these BTGs. But Rob, of course, since he was going to stay, he got shaped up. So Rob says to me, you know what, if you go back to Atlanta, because I had a hippie hair. So he said, if you go back to Atlanta with your, long hair, you're just gonna get right back in the same nonsense that you were in before. So if you wanna stay a devotee, you should shave your head. I said, I don't know about that. I don't know how well that's gonna be received in Atlanta. And he said, well, look at it this way. Everyone in Atlanta has long hair. You'll be shaved up. That'll be cool. And I thought, well, that makes sense. So Devaki Nandana shaved me up. And I had just been shaved up in just like seconds. And then I came down the steps. It's not hardly steps, it's more like a ladder. I came down in this little room. They had Lord Jagannath, Vallavi and Vallavi. That was their altar, was all they had. So I got in front of Lord Jagannath, and in the other door walks immediately Rupanuga. I mean, and he was the first person I saw. So he thought I was a devotee because I was shaved up. But I wasn't really a devotee, I just had shaved up. And I was more of a friend of the devotees. So he offers me his obeisance. I offered my obeisance back, and they had just arrived. I don't think Tardas was with you. I think it was you, and I think it was Praladananda. I think it was you and Rupanuga and Praladananda. You had a little Volkswagen. It was a little Volkswagen. No, but I mean, y'all were riding in the Volkswagen. So then I met Janmejaya, and so then Rupanuga said, you know, my brother-in-law lives in, he asked me where I was from, and I told him I was from Atlanta. And so I was planning to go after I finished school. Some of the boys told me, you should just, drop out of school. I have 2 months left to go on a 4-year degree. I mean, you want me to drop out of school? And so there wasn't any question of that. So they were afraid I would loop if I went back. So Rupanuga said, my brother-in-law's from Atlanta, and we've been wanting to open a center in Atlanta. Would you be willing to help us? So, sure. I didn't really think I would do it. I thought I was just being polite. My plan was to go back to Vrindavan. So before I could get away, well, during the time I came back to Atlanta, when I was up there, Satyabhama was very kind. She sort of took me under her wing. And, I think they were a little worried that I would stray away from the path. So Satyabhama, at that time they were doing the Krishna book. And Prabhupada was finishing the Krishna book. And it was being edited at New Vrindavan. So they had the advanced sheets. So Satyabhama used to send me every week advanced sheets from the Krishna book.
Wow.
And in those days, there was such potency from Prabhupada, such mercy that was being given out. I mean, when Janmejaya was saying how he became mesmerized, I mean, it's the same way with me. I mean, when you chanted in those days, it was a totally different, it was a mystical experience. So I remember we were reading I was reading these advanced sheets, and it talked about, these sheets I had described how Krishna and Balaram used to steal the butter from the gopis and feed to the monkeys, and how naughty they were, and how the gopis used to chastise Krishna and Balaram, and then they would smile and no one could be angry at them, and they would go to a dark room and they were so effulgent they could see everything. So I was reading this, in this my little apartment in Atlanta, student memory, and I just became overwhelmed with ecstasy. I started crying, and I thought, this was the most wonderful, and I don't know why I thought this, but it just seemed like the most wonderful thing that God would, steal butter and yogurt. I just had this vision of these pastimes, as though by Prabhupada's mercy, Vrindavan was just, the curtains were Maya were withdrawn, and I was allowed to sit in it with no qualification whatsoever, other than just willingness to chant Hare Krishna mantras. There was such mercy in those days. So Satyabhama would send me these, and I would read them, and Rupanuga wrote me once and said, I'm coming. I didn't really believe he was going to come. That's okay. And then Rob came down from Vrindavan, and he taught me to chant 16 rounds, because they had taught him. And he told me, and I said, I don't know if I have time to do all that. He said, no, you have to do it. He said, as soon as you finish your 16 rounds, you will feel like you're on an LSD trip. He said, so you don't have to take LSD anymore. Well, that's pretty good. So I started chanting 16 rounds that day. And I've been chanting ever since. I've been high ever since. So Rob came down, and then Rupanuga showed up with Janmejaya. But you forgot two people. Paul, remember Paul? And his wife. Forgot her name. They ended up going back to Buffalo.
And they come
Came with you. They came from Buffalo. Paul and some very nice people. And then Nityananda was with you. So Rupanuga only stayed a day, and then he went on to New Orleans with Nityananda, because Nityananda was going to open New Orleans.
Really?
You remember that?
No.
Yeah. Nityananda taught me to play the Madunga. He taught me that, yeah, Janmejaya knew how to play Madunga quite well. And I had learned to play cartels a little bit, but yeah, Nityananda taught me that. I thought they were all very nice devotees, very nice people. They're very educated, University of Buffalo. So, but it was Paul and somebody. They didn't stick. They stayed for a while, 2 or 3 weeks, and they went back to Buffalo. But it was Janmejaya and Taradasi, and Jayasena and Susie. Jayasena came with Janmejaya, Taradasi, and Rupanuga. And he had Susie, and he was so attached to Susie.
Yeah.
And that was the dog, a little black dog. And we used to take her everywhere we went. She wasn't allowed to stay in the apartment, she stayed outside. One day she ran away. So that left Taradasi, Janmejaya, myself, and Jayasena. We used to go to Sankirtan every day. And as soon as I graduated from college, my lease ran out. So we got that temple, that 9th Street temple was just by Kunta. It was so nice. I had a, Jayasena and I stayed in one room, we had our own room. And I had my Bhagavad Gita. I had studied Hinduism in college. I was totally into it, actually. Buddhism, Hinduism. So I knew a little bit. It was all personal and wrong conceptions. It took Prabhupada an entire Bhagavad Gita reading to convert me to personalism, but he succeeded in one reading. But I used to read Bhagavad Gita every night, and and we had these sandals that we would buy at Kmart that were made with reeds, and it made me feel like a Buddhist monk. So I like that. I took it, going on Sankirtan was the tapasya, it was the yoga for the age and all that. So we used to go down and we had a morning program, we got up at 4 o'clock. We did Mongol Arti. We did Mongol Arti, we did Bhagavatam class, we chanted our japa, we had breakfast, then we went on Sankirtan for the morning, came back for lunch, and we went back out on Sankirtan after lunch until evening. In the evening we had a Bhagavad Gita class, and then we went to bed. Slept 6 hours, not a minute more. And then we got up and we repeated the whole thing again, but we were happy, we were blissful. And 9th Street, I remember the same way Janmejaya does. I mean, we had Bhagavad. This was Now we're at the, so this is the summer of 1970. And what you didn't say was that that was the year of the Atlanta Pop Festival.
Yes, that's right.
And so there were people in Atlanta from all over the world getting ready for this pop festival. And so there was lots and lots of people. And so they came to the temple. And they came to Piedmont Park.
Well, devotees came from all the centers too.
That's about, I'm talking about before the festival. I'm saying, you know, that's,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we had, our Sunday feasts were full. And we used to make I remember exactly how much we made at the park every Sunday, $100. And that was a lot. In those days, that was equivalent to $1,000 today, easy.
There was never a problem.
Right. And I don't know if you remember, but at the park, that was the, I don't want to give anybody any free publicity, but that was the Allman Brothers that used to play there.
Yeah.
And they went on to become a famous band. They weren't famous in those days. They were kind of a local band. Those were slightly famous. And but they liked us. And as a matter of fact, the Allman Brothers, one of them went to God. He put in his biography about us chanting. So, and they were very attracted to chanting. So whenever they would take a break, we got invited onto the stage, little stage, that little band shop in the park. And we would give a lecture, Janmejaya would a lecture. We would chant, and Janmejaya would a lecture. Every time, so all you would hear it. And so it goes on that he married Cher, and their son became a devotee in Los Angeles. I don't know if he's still a devotee or not, but he became a devotee. So we were very successful. Things were going extremely well. And then the Atlanta Pop Festival came along, and we went to the Atlanta Pop Festival, and we distributed prashadam, and devotees came down from Detroit. They came down from New York. They came down from Providence, Rhode Island. I'm still running into people in Florida all the time who were at that festival. Always running into them. And they have a very favorable attitude towards us. We were invited to give the Sunday sermon. Because it was Sunday, you had to have in those days, everybody went to church on Sunday, everybody. So it was Sunday, and so they had to have a religious service. So being hippies, they had to have, someone that was appropriate, and that was us. So we went up on the stage, and in those days they had a Broadway play called Hair, and they had Hare Krishna was in the Hair, and of course George Harrison had, no, that was later, but he had released his Hare Krishna Mantra 45 record, so everyone knew the Hare Krishna Mantra from those things, and so we used the tune from Hair, and we were chanting. Kirtananda was leading it. I don't know if you were on stage.
I wasn't on stage.
I got invited to be on stage, and so we looked out, and there were hundreds of thousands of people, and they were all chanting. And my hairs were standing on end. I was absolutely epic. And so then Sridhar was here from Providence, Rhode Island, Nanda Kishore, and his wife. So that was a very big deal. And so Vallavi was coming up to we had a tent, and Kirtananda would give a lecture every week. We would distribute watermelon and nuts and raisins and lemonade. And so Vallavi she saw the devotee, she started coming to the tent every night. She would come to listen. She listened to Kirtananda, and Abhirama and I both spotted her. So we both started preaching to her. So we were competing with each other. She was very beautiful. She was so beautiful. And she was interested in the devotee. So I kind of went out over Abhirama. He sort of backed off after a while. And so then when it came time to go back, when the festival was over, she was going to go back to with New Vrindavan devotees because she was from Cleveland, Ohio. So going to New Vrindavan was 2/3, 3/4 of the way home. So I intervened in that, unbeknownst to her. I had told Kirtananda, I said, what? I said, you know, you have so many devotees in New Vrindavan. We need some more devotees in the planet. This is, we're still on Main Street.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't you leave Vallavi Prabhu here? He said, okay, because he and I were friends from back when he used to come to Atlanta.
That's right.
So, and besides that, Kirtananda was always interested in Lakshmi. And he had made so much Lakshmi there. And so I think he felt he owed us a favor or something. So when it came time for her to get in the band, he told her, he said, well, I think the band is full. Why don't you stay here in Atlanta? There's a nice temple here, and they need you here. So she said, okay, she stayed. Shy. So
Christians do.
I think so. So she stayed, and so then we had a new devotee. And not only that, but we had I think we had $1,000 because we bought a brand new Dodge Tradesman van. We traded in my Corvair, and we had enough down payment. I'll never forget how much it cost. It cost $5,000. Wow. It cost $5,000. That white van, brand new. And I painted on the side, you know, I painted the mantra on the side, and put World Sankirtan Party, International Sankirtan Party. So we got the van, and those were happy days. And then Karita joined. Remember Karita? Very nice devotee. And then also, who? Bunny became a friend of ours. We stayed in her apartment for a while. And who was the man that he went to Los Angeles? He became a devotee. No, it starts with a J. No, he didn't have a devotee name. Curtis. Remember Curtis? Remember Curtis? Curtis, Karita. And so the temple started to fill up. And we all went to New Vrindavan, and we came back, and we were evicted from our house. So we were homeless for a couple of months. I went by one of the houses today and saw. Remember when Sarasvati visited? He couldn't find us. We didn't have a telephone, so he just came down. And there was a little house that we had temporarily when they went for a week. It was an apartment. It was in a neighborhood that was a very dodgy neighborhood, and now it's like upscale. You can't touch that place for less than millions of dollars. It's over walking disappearance park. We stayed in various places, and you found a place on 18th Street. That was a very successful place. Beautiful. It looked like a temple.
It was a nice building. It was a home, but it was very nice. Good size.
Columns in the front, white column, looked like a plantation type thing. And the thing about it is you could stand across the street from it, and it was effulgent. We made a lotus flower on the outside. That place just shone like a Vaikuntha plant. And and we were there. And then remember Surendra joined. Surendra and his wife, they were from East Point.
You're from East Point?
Huh?
You're from East Point?
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Surendra, I forgot her name. Huh? Kali. Her name was Kali. They did the incense business. And I remember after Janmejaya left, he hadn't been gone more than a week or so. And so we used to go to Athens once a week. So Sanal was the president, and so we all went to Athens, and then we had some problem about something. Surendra goes, well, it's obvious why this temple used to be successful. He didn't like the fact that I was the Panihati Dham president, so he ended up leaving. He went to Philadelphia. So that was, yeah. So, that brings us up to, then we met up, there was a man, I had to guess briefly, this history. There was a time that came, over on 13th Street. And I was thinking, we should be in the mentality to welcome everybody to come to this temple. We shouldn't think of this as our temple. We should be in the mentality of just being happy for everybody to come. And people started coming from that. From that, but simultaneously people started coming. And there was a man that came by the name of Fred Slyman. Remember him? Fred Slyman's father was a very successful real estate developer in Boston. And for some reason, Fred was here in Atlanta. And he had a good friend named Mike Gleason. And Mike Gleason was an attorney in Decatur. And Mike had been through AA. And so he had a spiritual side to him as a result of that experience. And Fred just he never became a devotee, but he was so attracted to the devotees. And so he wanted to help us. And we were getting so many people coming to the Sunday feast and coming to the Gita classes on 13th Street that the temple wasn't large enough. We had actually expanded. We had 3 buildings. We had one for the incense and one for the grihastas, and we had the main building. So we had 3 buildings already, and but it was still not big enough. So Fred took it upon himself to help us fund a property, and he ran into Bill Auld, A-U-L-D. Bill Auld owned these 3 properties. They were pretty run down. They had been, of course, very prestigious homes originally, but that was back in the early 1900s. They had been, this one had been a fraternity house, and they had been rented out fairly low rent places. So Bill wasn't, and then this property was not very marketable at the time. And we were looking, I wanted the house across the street. That's the one I wanted. Krishna obviously didn't want it. It was too small, actually. It turned out it would have been too small. But I liked that. And we looked at the Canberra mansion. We actually took the Canberra mansion for a little while.
That's the ghost mansion.
It's not a ghost mansion anymore, but it was a ghost mansion at the time. And we'd come back and all the ghosts would come back with us. It was like unbelievable. So anyway, so Fred Slyman worked this deal with Bill Auld, where we had got these properties with an option to buy. It's $1,250 a month for all 3. We were paying $500 a month at 13th Street.
Wow.
So this was 1,000. We didn't have any. Man, come on, we didn't have any savings. We had jobs. We had nothing but Krishna. That's all we had. And we didn't know, from one day to the next, where we were going to get the money to pay the light bill or pay the electric bill or pay anything. But yet we were bold to say, okay, $1,250 a month. And then we said, and we want an option to buy. Where do we get the money? So we got an option to buy for $250,000. What's the price? Which in those days it was like dollars to us.
Good deal.
It was a good deal. So we got these properties, and this was a room, and that was a room.
Bedroom and then kitchen.
Huh? This was a dining room.
Dining room.
That was a dining room. That was a kitchen. And that was where it was columns. The other side of the columns was a hallway, and this was a wooden floor. So, but we were all very excited and very happy to have this. And devotees worked day and night. And we got, and at that time, living here in Atlanta was a very wonderful devotee who's since passed away by the name of Srila Prabhupada.
Haribol.
Nice devotee. He used to tell me stories of Manipur. He was from Manipur. I always wanted to go to Manipur. He said that this area reminded him of Manipur because of the magnolia trees, and there's so many magnolia trees there. He told me that Magnolia in Manipur, the word for Magnolia in Manipur is the lotus that grows in the land. So I thought that was nice. So Prabhupada loved Sri Damodar. He was a chemist, very intelligent and very pure-hearted. This person was just right out of it. I mean, although he was highly educated, his heart was pure. This person was like out of the Satya Yuga. He was just like an intelligent, simple person from Manipur, but yet he was highly educated. Prabhupada loved him, and Prabhupada used to always discuss science with Sri Damodar. So they wrote back and forth. So just about the time we got this building, Sri Damodar was writing to Prabhupada, and he said, "It's very nice here in Prabhupada. I would invite you to come visit." So the letter came back. Prabhupada said, "Yes, I will come." So man, it was round the clock work. And were you had gone to India? Were you back by then?
I had just gotten back.
That's right, I remember.
My folks' house upstate New York. But I had hepatitis, I was only 90 some pounds.
Yeah.
So I was convalescing.
So you didn't here for probably visit. Okay, so anyway, it was a perfect storm. He came, and that's a whole story of all the that few days. I don't know how long he was here 3 or 4. It was a weekend.
He came on the 28th of February. First and second Wednesday.
Well, how is it this is the anniversary of it?
Huh?
How is this the anniversary? Date is only the 8th. Oh, we don't have moon calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the moon anniversary. Yes, right. So there's so many stories. I mean, that was at that time, Vaikuntha, not only Vaikuntha, but Krishna Loka just descended. Of course, wherever Prabhupada was, of course now in the early, Rakesh was coming. What's your name now?
Ram Raghavan.
Ram Raghavan. What year was that?
Everybody just said you can always call me Rakesh from the whole.
He was here.
No, it came.
Oh, 13th Street.
October in 74 and 13th Street.
You were just a young lad. You were like
Long hair.
13 years old maybe.
Well, you was having trouble convincing my parents to let me become vegetarian. And you told me,
He said it wasn't healthy.
and you told me, why don't you make a deal with them? You'll get your hair cut if they let you become vegetarian. So because of you, I was able to get that.
Your parents were very nice. Charming, yeah, I remember the Sharmas. They were very nice Brahmins. I remember that, very nice. So anyway, yeah, so but at that time, Prabhupada just, he had the power to do it. He just opened up Vaikuntha and said, "Come on in for a few days." And I mean, we were dancing and Prabhupada was here chanting, and Paramahansa was leading the kirtan. I mean, it's like, it reminds me of the story where when Krishna was lifting Govardhan Hill, the threefold miseries, no one felt threefold miseries. When Prabhupada was here, no one felt threefold miseries. You weren't hungry. You could dance forever. Sometimes, you're chanting and how many rounds is that? That's 14. Okay, 2 more to go. It wasn't like that at all. It was just ecstatic. It was the same pleasure you get when you're eating a big samosa. You just enjoy the samosa. We were just enjoying. It was just pure enjoyment. And it seemed like every time he appeared, there was another transcendental nectar sweet that he would give us. It was, Krishna, the devotees never are tired because Krishna, as soon as they start to get used to one pastime, he'll put a new pastime to enliven everybody. And that's what Prabhupada was doing. We've discussed that many, many times of all the different, it never gets old, but that was just a super wonderful experience. I guess that's what we're you remember it now. Remember when he was standing right there and he, well, first of all, he offered his dandavats. We had Gaudi, it was the same Gaudi time. And there's that, of course, I'm sure you've all heard, but just, it's still on tape. People around the world tell me, I listened to tapes the other day, Prabhupada in Atlanta, I couldn't believe it. And you can't tell from the tape sound what it was actually like to see the event. Prabhupada, when he saw his Vallavi deities, you know, there's that, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love? When will my words be choked up? When will all the hairs on my body and the eruptions of devastation within? That choked up, he displayed. I mean, it was real. He couldn't talk. I mean, and he was trying to talk. And it was like seeing someone, it's the material side. If you saw someone materially doing that, you would think they're having a seizure. That's what you would think. You would think this person's having a seizure. And you would want to, call the emergency people. Because it wasn't ordinary. His nervous system was overwhelmed to the point where he could not speak. And he tried, and there was a long silence. And when he finally spoke, it came out very labored. It was like very forced, and his words came out in a very high pitch. It was, in my understanding, Prabhupada was always feeling ecstasy, but this time he blessed us by revealing, showing his ecstasy. Anyway, yeah, he came up to the altar, bowed down, and the Gaudi Tai, the same Gaudi Tai, probably sitting exactly in that same place he's sitting now. And walked right through that door. This room was essentially the same. I did do a trick. All the devotees were out at the airport to greet Prabhupada. So this neighborhood was on the, this neighborhood was not what it is today, to be completely honest about it. Druid Hills was nice, but it wasn't what it is today. Today, Druid Hills is just practically untouchable unless you're a millionaire. So this was on the edge. If you went north of here or east of here, you were into some pretty tough neighborhoods. And at the Plaza Drugs, that was not a place. It was a 24-hour place, but you would not want to be there. That was a tough place. So devotees, ostensibly, on the excuse that I have to let the devotees get back to the temple so they can greet Prabhupada. So I have to take a little extra time getting them back. So on that excuse, to get him here from the airport, I went down to Piedmont Road, 85. I came in 85, I passed 20, went on past downtown, and went out 85, and got off at Piedmont Road. The car's full. I mean, all the dignitaries in the car are probably not. We rented this big black Lincoln, which was like better than Cadillac in those days. There were no Mercedes. This was like the best car you could get. Big black Lincoln. And so I came down Piedmont Road to North Decatur Road. I think it's North Decatur Road. Maybe Druid Hills Road. Anyway, that one that goes, yeah, anyway, then I came down to Springdale. No, I didn't get to Briarcliff. I crossed Briarcliff on North Decatur. I got to Springdale and turned right. Came down Springdale. So I'm just driving along, right? Prabhupada's looking. Prabhupada, he knows, he was a Grihasta. He knows the story. He went, when I talked to him about zoning here, that's a whole nother story. How he saved our zoning. We're here because of Prabhupada. If it weren't for Prabhupada, we wouldn't be here. That's a whole other story. But he knew zoning. He knew the difference between multifamily, He knew what a special use permit was, he knew what a special variant, he knew all that stuff. He had a case that went to the Indian Supreme Court, and he was in the hospital, so he knew. And so he's taking all this in. And we got to Springdale, and we were all in the car, Paul was in the back seat, he was looking, we were all looking, and this porch was just filled with devotees. Because we had, people were here from all over, Vallavi was here, all over. It was just filled with devotees. And you could feel it in the car. He liked it. He was very pleased. And so we came across there and we pulled up, and it was just getting better and better. And so we stopped there at the steps, and he got out. Manuga came around and got probably out there helping him up. It was just, a sea of devotees, all chanting and just totally ecstatic to see Prabhupada. And that's when he got into the asana. And I think he came here just to make parampara devotees. That was one of the best parts of the Sunday things.
Who is there?
Well, yeah, because we had parampara, and then there was another person. What was his name? He was coming here every Sunday feast. He was always coming. He loved the devotees, but he was into the 3HO ashram, Kundalini, because he was more of a yogi type, Randy or something. And nice young man. But that was, Kundalini's taught Sikh Dharma, which is, who's the head of Sikh Dharma? Not Yogi Bhajan. Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak. So we're all, just like this, Prabhu was sitting right there, and this man was sitting right over in this area. So after Prabhu gave his lecture, this man raised his hand, and he said, "What happens to the followers of Guru Nanak?" So everybody holds their breath. What is Prabhupada going to say? So Prabhupada smiled for a minute, he was a little quiet, and then he said, "The followers of Guru Nanak are indeed fortunate." So this man is not going to become a devotee now, for sure. So I don't think he got the blessings, but but Prabhupada actually did always, Prabhupada simply spoke truthfully. Prabhupada admired Guru Nanak, and he actually always admired the Sikh Dharma people. He made a number of comments about that. He admired them. He would touch himself. So then, emboldened, our parampara, his Jatila was already a devotee, I think. She was living in a temple or very close to it. And his friend, Beta Guya, now become Beta Guya, Mike Dunn, he's out in Hawaii now. He's got his big farm out in Hawaii. He's in charge of printing Prabhupada's original books. He's a big devotee. So they were all very good friends. So Mike Dunn, Dr. Mike, was already in the temple. So the only holdout was Parampara. They had this son, Janaka, who was a good friend of mine. He's in Alachua, and I see him all the time. Such a nice young man, super nice young man, very nice devotee. So Parampara, I think, was sitting maybe over on this side. Yeah, he was sitting right here. Right here. So he's emboldened. So because he's been resisting, and he's been debating with Jatila and Mike Dunn and everybody about the devotee, devotees can be annoying. Let's just face it. So he didn't know about this. They had a vegetarian restaurant, and so he was in the mayor bar, but he didn't like all this, putting down impersonalists and all that, criticizing people. So he decided he was going to ask his question. His question was?
I asked Prabhupada, who is Mayor Bob?
Who is Mayor Bob? Second question, right after who is Guru, what happened to the followers of Guru Nanak? Who is Mayor Bob?
All the different groups are being represented, we're all here.
Yeah, well, all the people from Atlanta, all the different, spiritual groups from Atlanta are all here. Christians were here too. I'm surprised they didn't try to do more. They didn't do much. So Prabhupada frowned. This was not. He goes, I do not know. There are so many bogus papas. Just know who is Krishna. That is sufficient. So that was a blessing. See, Prabhupada must have performed so many pious deeds for so many lifetimes to get that mercy. So Prabhupada has been a devotee since that very moment. But we couldn't convince him. I mean, nothing that we could say would convince him. But when Prabhupada said it, that was it. So that was a highlight. Everyone clapped, if I remember. Just like that. Everyone cheered. It was
So many votes.
So yeah, that was quite a few days. Well, Vallavi spent her time up Robin's quarters, making relations. He liked his quarters; they were very nice and clean. Oh, I can say one thing though. He nailed me because we were staying up late, getting everything done for his ceremonies and everything. So it was Sunday morning. So I came up, so probably from that room, he could, top of that building, he could see everything behind. So it was about maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. It was time to go to Sunday for the morning walk. So I came to get Prabhupada for the morning walk, and I came in. Prabhupada says to me, so, the devotees here do not go to Mongol Archy. I said, no, what? The Mongol Archy this morning was filled with devotees. I happen to know that it was. He goes, because guess who wasn't in Mongol Archy? How did he know that? So I didn't know that. I said, oh yes, brother, they all go to, the devotees here go to Mongol Archy. Oh, there was a famous thing where, two more stories. One is that Cardamom Mooney, who is now in East out in the last year too. Thank goodness everyone has a meeting. But Cardamom Mooney was our cook. And so the kitchen was where now the life member room is. And we had bought this big stainless steel table, restaurant table. And Cardamom Mooney, when he cut the vegetables, the knife would go through the vegetable and click on the table. Click, click, click. And so when we were having Bhagavatam class, we'd hear this click, click, click. And we'd always, whoever was giving classes, Cardamom Mooney, send someone in the kitchen. But he was he was stubborn. And so, he kept doing it. And, he would stop when you tell him, but the next day he'd be doing it again. Because that was when we would cook the morning prasadam offering, is when Bhagavatam class. So that way we get people to go in and work in the kitchen, otherwise they didn't want to do it. So Prabhupada was giving the lecture one morning for Bhagavatam class, sitting on that seat in the middle of the lecture, what is that clicking? And he didn't know, so the lecture stopped. He's still clicking with his knife, and he's thinking, why is Prabhupada not speaking? What happened? Because we had speakers in the kitchen, Why is click, click. So, Karamani! Prabhupada says, why are you clicking? So, you should listen when some people tell you stuff, you should listen. And then another time, Tripurari, who was a famous book distributor, in those days there was a big debate over whether everyone in the temple had to go out on book distribution, or whether people who were taking care of the deities and cooking were also doing good service. And the book distributors they would try to, they were in the mode of passion, frankly, and so they wanted to think they were better than everybody else. They wanted to think, I'm the greatest devotee. That's a symptom of someone in the mode of passion. Someone in the mode of passion thinks, I want to be the greatest devotee. Someone in the mode of ignorance thinks, I am the greatest devotee. I am the Messiah, the same. We have to deal with that all the time. New devotees are always thinking that they get, there's something special. In the mode of passion, they're trying to be the greatest devotee. In the mode of goodness, they just want to be a devotee. And then when they actually reach the transcendental platform, they actually become humble, genuinely humble. So, Tripuraris, then, women, they were thinking they were the greatest devotees, or were going to become the greatest devotees, because they were distributing books. And Prabhupada did encourage them to distribute books, because that was important service, no question about that. But they would put other devotees down, try to make other devotees feel like, they weren't they weren't pleasing Krishna, they weren't serving Prabhupada. And the excuse was, well, everyone should be on book distribution, that's what the Prabhupada wants, and so we're just trying to encourage these other devotees. Well, some devotees weren't really, suited for going on book distribution all day long. They were suited for doing other services. So, but Tripurari happened to be here when Prabhupada was here. So he wanted to establish once and for all that the book distributors were the highest status within the movement. He wanted to make that really clear so that all the rest of us who were low status would learn to be humble around high status devotees. So, and he knew that Prabhupada would certainly do that because they were the most important devotees in the movement. He knew that. So he raised his hand at the same Sunday feast lecture. And he asked the question, Prabhupada, what pleases you most? Everybody knew what that would mean. We were ready for it. And so Prabhupada, he thought for just a fraction of a second, and he responded, when you love Krishna. That put him into once and for all. Dr. Sharma. When you love Krishna.
Do you recollect when we got the first devi?
Yes. Janmejaya took the original Panchatattva to Tallahassee, I believe. That's what we had in those days, Panchatattva. So when he went to Tallahassee, I think he took it. So this one was painted by Jadharani. We got that. That one we got on, early on. We got it on, we got it on 13th Street. That came from her, from the BBT. And we put the little jewels around Lord Chaitanya. And that was the altar. That was the deity on our altar until we installed Gauri Tai, which was about 1974.
We celebrated last year.
Okay, 1974. So from 1970 to 1974, that was our And we had, this is also the, Sanjaya hearing from Dhritarashtra. Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, Samaveta Yuyutsava, Mamaka Pandivas Chaiva, Kirvata Sundar. So that's that picture. And that was early on. That picture we got like 1970.
And where's Lord Balaram's Rasa dance?
Next to it. Supposed to be next
I didn't see it where. Huh?
One of the bedrooms, okay. We got, Janmejaya, you got that. You got the Balaram Rasa dance. You don't know, it's so nice. It's Lord Balaram, when Krishna never physically went back to Vrindavan, of course, but he sent Lord Balaram back to soothe the hearts of the devotees of Vrindavan. And Lord Balaram did the Rasa dance also for 1 year. 1 year he did the Rasa. Actually, I think maybe 1 year of Brahma. Yeah. 1 year of Brahma he did the Rasa dance. And we have a picture of that. We get a painting. We have a visual painting of that. So, and then, you know what? Right inside that door, there's a beautiful painting of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, painted by Sarasvati. Yeah, very nice. So,
When did this painting, the large painting of Srila Prabhupada?
that came on a plane the day before Prabhupada arrived from New York. No, it was like that, framed. Somehow we got down here on the plane. Pushkar painted that. It was, now we borrowed that painting. That painting was loaned to us just for that one occasion. But it became so famous because Prabhupada did the arting for it. That's a whole other story. Prabhupada did the arting for that painting. It became so famous no one would dare ask for it. It was installed. It was installed, so no one's ever asked for it back. I think Pushkar, he even touched it up recently. And so usually Pushkar sells his paintings. But in this case, this one is, that's Bhaktisiddhanta. You can't sell Bhaktisiddhanta. That's probably the first one did the artist.
Haribol.
His grace Janmejaya Prabhu ki! His grace Balavanta Prabhu ki! Her grace Vallavi Mataji ki! Actually, we didn't say a lot about Mother Vallavi, but for me, she's my first mother in Krishna consciousness. And she gave me my first service in Krishna consciousness, cleaning the bookstore, watching Shravamangala on Sunday. But she's actually one of the pillars of this whole project. And we owe a great debt to Mother Vallavi, so let's give a big Haribol. Thank you so much. Please. Haribol! So I'm going to ask the G. Krishna Prabhu on behalf of our temple to welcome Balavanta, Janmejaya Mother Vallavi.
Hare Krishna. Well, you've shared so much nectar with us already that there's really nothing left to say, except we just timed it such that we have most of the congregation here, and we would thank you very much for being here at this point, and we're now very excited about the next part of the program. So welcome, and well, we do thanks later on, but I was just going to say thank you for coming, but we'll save that for a little bit later. But on behalf of everybody here at the temple, as well as the Atlanta congregation, we'd like to welcome you all to Atlanta. So everybody, if you would like to join me in A very loud Haribol for our esteemed guest lady.
So now we are doing the wonderful program of worshiping Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. This is his Vyasa Puja, and it's exactly 40 years since the time Prabhupada came here in 1975 and performed the Arti ceremony to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So all of you will get an opportunity to offer flowers. So we're asking everyone to please stand up and come close to this painting.